Team WUNAX. Joe, DIETRICH.
What's up, guys? Joe here, and I am here with a very special guest.
What's up,
Introduce
guys? The
yourself.
DB Grinder.
Oh God, yes. So today we will be discussing potential ban list hits and stuff. I know we just kind of got a list, but a lot of people are thinking it's kind of like an intermediate list, just like a small update for like a much larger list to come in like a month or two after the holidays. Especially since they just announced YCS Mexico, which would be the week before Vegas, the same week as France. So we have a lot of very large events happening in February. So hopefully we'll get something in early January that will give us like a fresh new feeling going into all of those important events. But my guest here, the DB Grinder, if you want to check out his content, we'll link his channel down below as well as his quality Twitter account and Team JNC's information as well.
Hey, let's go.
So I guess we're just gonna talk about like what cards would you remove from the format to make it like less of a tier 0 format and more of like a healthy format where we have, you know, quote unquote healthy, right? Like this isn't like the most degenerate tier 0 format we've had before. Like I remember playing like the tier 0 spiral format, and that was definitely really skillful, but there were also aspects where like you just went second and you lost instantly because the board was just crazy. And like
Yeah.
at least for me playing the tier mirrors, it feels like every game is winnable. In most cases, like unless you just miss off all your mills and you know get crazy RNG'd, but most of the time it feels like you can like play out of things, and it's like a very back and forth like interactive mirror. There's not a whole lot of negates, which is like something that I'm a huge fan of. I felt like the Despia and like Sword Soul decks were super healthy because they didn't really have a whole lot of negates. It was just more like interactions.
Yeah. What you're saying with your original question, like what would I do to make the format feel a little bit more fresh? Is I'd probably, hit tier element. I think
Sure.
a lot of people want that deck hit. I mean, it's got to be hit somewhat in the next ban list for sure. Then they're gonna be bringing out more cards. I think that's gonna help out a lot too. Making the format feel more fresh. But maybe we hit like a tier name. Maybe we hit a little bit of the Shizu stuff. Like we could hit Kaldo down to one. Like
Sure.
that's probably just like the bestie Shizu.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's not a whole lot of Ishizus that like progressively like give you advantage as strong as like Keldo, right? Because like people we saw like Jesse was playing like a Guido for his list, and like you can go Keldo, discard Kelbeck, so you're milling 5, and then you're gonna add the Guido, and that gets you into like 2 more bodies. So you have 3 level 4s, and you're milling 5 off of just 2 cards. It's really strong.
mhm. I also think maybe hitting Havness down the one.
Oh, I
That could be
agree.
that could be a good hit just because like the card's like the best hand trap in the game because like it's an engine hand trap that also provides like follow up and interruption.
Yep.
So I think Havness is insane. So I think they either should hit like Havness down the one, or maybe if they really want to hit the deck, you could ban Murley, just
Sure.
because like that's the one that you have the most access through stuff like Sprint.
Yeah, I mean, we want to try to avoid like hitting cards that help other decks, right? So like Sprint is like obviously super broken in the tier deck because like you said, being able to like send Murley, but like we don't want to hit the Sprite deck, right? Because the Sprite deck isn't tier 0, it's not crazy. It's really good, but it's not like the best deck, and it's not taking up large portions of top cut. So
Hmm.
being able to like hit the problem card rather than like the enabler would be helpful. Though we in the past we've seen Konami do the opposite, right? With like things like Hulk, they've hit like Glow Up Bulb or O Lion or some of the tuners, and then keeping Hulk in the format for a long time until they did eventually ban it. So hopefully they don't hit something like Sprint. But yeah, hitting Murley is interesting, right? Because not only does it take away the Sprint access, but also takes away Elf. Um,
Hmm.
which is like another super strong card. But it also takes away the aspect of like if you can dark summon a monster, Merlee is the only dark tier that you can summon that's not Kit, obviously, that like does something on summon, right?
Mhm.
If you go like Dark Target Havness or Sharon, it's not gonna do anything. But like if you summon the Merlee, not only does it like facilitate a way for you to make one of the good links like we talked about earlier, like Sprint or Elf, but it also mills on summon, so it gives you advantage as well.
I also think that like if they just like ban one of the names, then like we go down from 3 fusions a turn to 2 fusions a turn.
Yep.
So like the deck instantly becomes like so much worse. But that may be a reason why they don't want to do a hit like that.
Right.
Planet being hit down the one, that's a hit that a lot of people were talking about, just because of how strong it is, especially going in the rogue matchups. Having a pop every turn is honestly just game. Like you don't even need that much of an end board with Planet there.
Yeah, it's I would agree with that. I think Planet definitely needs to go to one. It's like just a ridiculous card. It gives you like such a huge edge in the mirror, like comparatively to like when you have Planet and when your opponent does not have Planet. You can really tell like how much you're trading like consistently, and
Hmm.
like going plus in every interaction. And it has like three effects, right? Like it has the add effect, it has the pop effect, and it has the attack gain effect, which like becomes super relevant because you're not going to be popping the tier monsters, you're going to be attacking over them. If you ult with the same monster, then like you're just gaining 500 and you're just being able to beat over everything. So it's just like one of those really ridiculous cards that just facilitates so much.
Yeah, yeah. I think that card could see a hit. I think Instant Fusion could see a ban. It'd be a little bit unfortunate because like it would hurt the whole Predator Plant archetype
Yep,
would like completely disappear.
yep.
But I think, for the time being, they could just ban Instant Fusion, and then whenever they do another ban list and like kill off tier, they could bring this back to one just for Predator Plant.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Instant's definitely a cool card. Like you said with the Predaplant cards, being able to search them, which is really neat. But also like
Mhm.
just what it's able to facilitate, like outside of kit and stuff. It's like a warrior for a warrior deck. It's a tuner to level 2. Like there's a whole lot of really interesting things that you can do with the card. Um, and like it's definitely had its fair share of like issues, like when we had Norden, or just like being an extender, like I said, like with the warrior decks. But yeah, it's been the first time in a while that we've had like such a really broken instant fusion thing. And that instant fusion is one of those cards, right, where it allows you like cheat out like an additional fusion summon because like it doesn't use a tier name to summon Kit, so you can use another tier name to summon like Muddragon or Garura or something else. So being able to fuse 4 times is much better than being able to fuse 3 times.
Mhm. I also think maybe talking about like how many times you could fuse a turn, maybe we can like hop into like the Bastille discussion.
Yeah, of course.
So the Bastilles are really strong, of course, because like Tier Element is like the big deck right now,
Hmm.
and these cards it feel like they were like meant directly for Tier.
Yep.
Them being so good in the mirror match, an interruption, a level 6 to make DIETRICH. Do you think we could see like a Magma Hut hit? Because I don't think anything else in the engine would be hit.
Yeah, right. Like it's definitely not Druids or the other one, Saronir. But yeah, Magnemite seems to be the most like quote unquote unfair one. Um, like the crazy interaction obviously is summoning your opponent's one with Dark, getting the search, and then linking those two into Sprint or like Elf or something like that. It's just ridiculous the amount of value you get off of that. Um, but yeah, I think like the bestial cards are like unnecessary evil in some cases, but it also makes a lot of decks unplayable. Like Drytron is absolutely unplayable. Just since they're all light monsters. Like we got Fusion Destiny back to 3, and now there's just no way you can ever play DP in a deck because it's a dark monster and it's just gonna get bestialed every single time.
Yeah, or like how Mathmech came out and it was like the third most popular deck, and then Bestials came out and Mathmech is like unheard of now.
Yep, yep, exactly. Yeah,
But
they're interesting cards, right? Like, um, the tier deck has like changed a lot of like the normal modern dynamic for like Yu-Gi-Oh decks, right? Because you look at decks that have been like quote unquote mid range or just like even combo decks, you have like a set aside spot for hand traps. And this has been the first deck in a while that we've seen that has just like, it plays 15 hand traps, but they're all engine cards, right? Like Kelbeck, all the Bestials, Havness, like we mentioned. Like they're just all extremely powerful engine cards that also stop your opponent from playing.
It's really weird how we're starting to get more hand traps like that because those hand traps are just so strong.
Yeah.
And this is like the first wave of them I feel like we've truly gotten. Like in the future, will we start getting like, support for old decks, maybe even like a Madolche hand trap engine?
Right.
I think that could be cool to do, but you also have to like make them really well because they could just be like too broken very easily.
Yeah, you have to make sure they're like archetypal specific. Um, because then they become generic and then like the best deck plays it and then it like defeats the purpose, right? You're trying to like give support to a certain deck and it ends up just being played in the best deck. It kind of defeats the purpose.
Oh, kind of like a Graphofusion from the structure
Yeah, exactly,
deck.
exactly. It's supposed to be Dark World support. People are playing it in tier with the King of the Swamp and Poly, so it's just like pretty ridiculous.
hmm
So we already touched on the Ishizu stuff. This card is kind of interesting, right? Talents is like a super powerful card, just given the like amount of different things that you can do with it. Being able to look at your opponent's hand is really good. Drawing two for free is really good, and then taking a monster without targeting is also crazy. And we've seen it in just infinite amounts of tier decks, as well as like sprite decks too recently. Just because of like how strong it is against the tier cards, since all the tier cards interact on other players' turn. What do you think about this card?
I don't think that card should be legal.
Yeah,
I think it's like really dumb because like we're in like modern Yu-Gi-Oh where like you kind of like have to hand trap your opponent. Like right now maybe like you don't have to hand trap a tier opponent in a
hmm
tier mirror to win, but most times you're gonna want to hand trap to have a chance. And if my hand trap causes me to get hit with talons, and if they ever say like, "Oh, I'm gonna look at your hand," you already know you've lost the
yeah,
game.
yep, yep,
Like every time they activate the effect, it's just GG's. And I feel like that shouldn't be there, but it's also like I feel like this card should have just never been released. But since it is released, I think it's just like never gonna be hit, or at least
sure.
for the time being, not be hit.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that you think of like really heavy combo decks, where you have to draw hand traps to stop them because they put up this crazy unbreakable board. Not that this is the format that we're in right now, but just
Mhm.
like in the future. And like you said, you hand trap the big combo deck and they just talents look at your hand. It's like, great. I was never winning this game anyways, right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, and there's just like not enough hand traps that aren't monster effects. Like it's really only imperm, right? Like I don't think there's
yeah,
anything else.
no, it's just imperm. And like all the high impact cards are monster cards as well, like Nibiru, Shifter, Gamma.
Yeah, and like if you use a low impact hand trap and then get hit with talents to rip your high impact hand trap, then you for sure lost that game too.
Yeah, yeah, it just feels terrible. And even like it solves the issue of like board breakers in some sense, right? Because like a lot of people are playing, Bestials and stuff like that, but they're also playing like the board breakers like Dark Ruler or something like that. And those are cards that usually have like low amounts of counterplay at sort of like crime or something like that. But being able to just look at your opponent's hand, not only do you remove the threat of like these high impact going second cards, but you also know exactly what to stop in your opponent's hand.
Yeah, having information is key.
Right.
Like if you know your entire opponent's hand, you know like what kind of end board you need to set up, what other hand traps to play around. Honestly, what you do like half the time with talents is you just like rip their engine and then you could just leave them with hand traps and it's like, okay, well, you can't play and I'll set up enough to win.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like I would do that against like sprites so many times.
Right. Yep.
But going into like the next things that we're gonna talk about, 'cause like obviously the big thing is tier element, Ishizus, like how is that gonna be hit?
Right.
But now we can hop into like flounderies and Like, do you think Flounderies needs to be touched, or do you think Flounderies can just stay exactly how it is?
So I'm a little biased, right? I'm a Flunder hater. I definitely think that deck is just one of the least fun decks to play against, especially since it definitely has like a high tendency to brick. So like it just doesn't even feel like you're being outplayed sometimes. Though there are some very talented Flunder players. Shout out Ryan Fletcher and Nick Ortiz. Um, but if you want to look at like cards that like could be hit potentially, I had set rotation up here, just as like a card that we could bring back since mine is gone. Um, but like looking at like the Flutter stuff deeper, like Map seems to be one of the craziest cards, right? It turns all of your mismatching pieces, all the birds that like you don't necessarily want to see in a certain order. It allows you to get to the birds that you need to see, as well as give you this mechanic to normal summon an additional time. It's always the worst when like you have one imperm or a veiler or something, and you just have to be like, oh, I really hope they don't have map or the quick play spell, and then they like normal summon a guy, you veiler it, and they just map and keep playing. It's just like a frustrating experience that they have the extender.
Yeah, I think personally Flounderies should at least take a little bit of a hit, just because like the deck's been around for over a year now,
Yeah,
and it's not like a fun deck to play against.
true.
It's like you said, it really just feels like bad sometimes. Like if your opponent just wins the dice roll and they just like summon statue, you can just lose.
Yep.
And then you can also just get like sacked by Shifter because it's like one of the few decks that can play it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the few decks that can play it, and it also can like loop it, right? Like being able to put it back with Mega Rise and Shifter you again. Um, another card
Like
that I
that's crazy.
Yeah, right. Another card that like I thought of recently is also like Featherstorm. Like that card is ridiculous. Like
Yeah, like turn one FTK and
yeah,
it's searchable off trap trick.
right. And it's just like if you think of like cards that are like have been removed from the game because they've been extremely unhealthy, it's just like lingering cards, right? Like we have like Maxi over here, or like you want to think of cards that are still legal like Scythe. Um, cards that like have low amounts of counterplay. And actually, Featherstorm having no counterplay honestly right now since there's no reboot is just like pretty ridiculous.
Like I think like macro and DeFi, like those cards 1 to 3, and like so far I haven't really been struggling with them. Like
Hmm.
sometimes you can like find a way to Zeus and out them, but if you get hit with like Harpy's Featherstorm, like there's not a whole lot you can do. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're playing like tier, you can summon like Babushka and just like pray that they can't do anything against it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think Flanders should take a little bit of a hit, but at the same time, how do you hit Flanders without killing them completely?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because like if you ban statue, I don't see a reason anyone would play the deck anymore. If you hit like an engine card like Map, Robin, Eagle, the deck probably is just too inconsistent to play after that.
Sure.
So maybe they need to like I don't know. I really don't know how I'd go about hitting flounderies. Maybe the actual way to hit it is wait until they come out with more support and then hit it. There
Sure.
we go.
Yeah. Right.
Let's release a fifth bird. Let's get crazy.
So moving to our last section, we have cards that are currently banned. Mystic Mine was hit on the last list. A lot of people are really happy about that. Um, but some people thought, it was like a necessary evil, right? To like keep deck building in check, it forced you to respect the card. Um, what do you think about this card coming back, staying banned? What are your thoughts on it?
So I don't think Mystic Mine should have got banned when it did. It probably could have got banned any other ban list throughout like the year, and it would have been understandable.
Yeah.
But this ban list, like people were starting to use Mystic Mine to like counter tier element, and we even saw people playing like Mystic Mine Turbo tier decks with like Utopia double in it.
Yep. Yep.
And I think that was cool. And also every rogue deck was playing like Terraforming Set Rotation, Mystic Mine, Necker Valley. And then we saw like Flounderies players play like their field spell. Exo Sisters just played the Necker Valley Mystic Mine. Um so like I feel like the Mystic Mine package and field spells and stuff, I think they were helping counter tier a lot, and then they
Sure.
banned Mystic Mine. So I don't think that should have been done right now.
And it's like it depends on how you use the card, right? Like if you're using it as like a end of the game, like you're not gonna have an out, then like yeah, that's like unhealthy. But every tier deck was playing Heartbeat to like have the out to mine. So it wasn't like this is the end of the game. It's just I'm trying to slow the pace down so I'm able to catch up as a player so I can begin playing.
There's also one of the cards in the tier mirror that dealt with the Dweller effect for the turn,
Yep.
and now we don't have that. I also don't think Mystic Mine can come back. I think it's one of those cards that, like, now that it's banned, it should just never come back.
Yeah, that's
Even if
fair.
there's a format where, like, it is good, there's a very good chance that, like, the next format, like, people aren't gonna like it. Like, I think most people just didn't like Mystic Mine at all, like, ever. I think it was like I liked it in the game, to be honest, but I understand that after like 3.5 years,
Yeah.
like, if you want it banned.
People are definitely tired of it. So bringing us to, I guess, our last part of the discussion is what everyone talks about all the time is Maxi. I feel like this card can never come back. Just based
Yeah.
on what it facilitates now in the game, right? With the whole, the play gigantic and it being a level 2, the bouncer back with Swap Frog in the Sprite deck makes it like extremely powerful, as well as just like how broken it would be with tier and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just don't like Maxi as a card. I think it's just really bad because everyone always sees it as like a going second card, and that's
Hmm.
all they ever see it as. But they don't ever think of it as like a going first card
Right.
because if you just set up a decent end board and drop Maxi, especially if you have other hand traps in your list, there's no way you lose that game
Yep.
ever, and your opponent has to like. It's weird because if they push, they lose because you draw hand traps and you beat them. If they don't push, then you beat them because you have follow up, and
Yep.
like you just obviously win. So I don't think there is a way to like truly balance Max C. So and you can't say like, oh, we'll just play a deck that's slow because the game is just fast. That's just
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah, and you're not drawing Max C every game, right? I'm 100% entering a tournament with a combo deck just because it's a combo deck and it can do so much more than like the slow trap decks.
Hmm.
And there like are like a decent amount of like counterplay like in the format right now for Maxi, like talents like we said, but like that isn't that isn't the solution. Talents called by stuff like Ash definitely stop the Maxi, but like you said, that doesn't stop the end board, right? Like if you're going first and you have Maxi, you Maxi them, you have to commit another card to stopping the Maxi before you can even begin thinking about playing through your opponent's board.
Yeah, people always say like Ash isn't out to Max C, but if your opponent goes first, you're gonna Ash one of their plays, and then Maxi goes through.
Right.
It's like the same thing with like Sanctum. And
Agreed.
I mean, I think like if you go first, there's a decent amount of cards to like beat Maxi. Like we have Ash, Called by, Cross Out, Talons, and like if Maxi came back to 3, there's a decent chance that we'd see Cross Out in deck lists at least for a little bit, just to try to out Maxi more consistently.
Right.
I don't
All
know.
right.
I don't think that card should come back.
Yeah, I agreed. I guess we did miss one thing. What you talking about like Dweller, right? Like how that card is like not very interactive, how it's been around forever, and how it seems to like always come back to being one of the problem cards.
I think that card should be banned. I think that card should have got banned a very long time ago.
Yeah, I agree.
But also, it wouldn't really like solve the tier mirror as much, just because I think we have like the Teller Knight now, like in the diamond.
Yep. It's
So we have
almost.
we have another like somewhat toxic play. Wouldn't be as good as Dweller, but it'd be like an okay backup plan if
Yeah.
Dweller did leave the last ban list.
Right.
Which I think last ban list Dweller should have got banned, and we shouldn't have got the Teller Knight guy back. Because
Yeah.
Dweller is like one of like the big toxic cards in the tier mirror. And if we're gonna stick with tier mirrors for a while, we may as well do what we can do to make it fun.
Yeah, I agree. It's like it's so disheartening when like you go first in the team and you set up your board or whatever, and then your opponent dwellers you, attacks with the dweller, and then main phase 2 Zeus is your whole board. It's just like so strong. But yeah, I agree. Keeping cards that interact are important, and removing cards that do not interact as much help create, a really healthy, positive environment for the game, because that's, the best thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you get to interact with your opponent on their turn, on your own turn, as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very good part about it.
All
It's
right.
also crazy because as you say that, I'm watching Elijah Green 14 on DB with D-Fissure, Skill Drain, and Warlord Book in his WUNAX deck. I had to call him out real quick.
That's insane. All right. Well, thank you so much for having this discussion with us, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yep. Peace.